Welcome to HDFC Bank Money Talk. Money Talk is a series of videos to help you understand the world of finance and economics in a simplified manner.
Hi, I'm Abhik and I'm here to talk about some alarming news that you might have read about the economy in the newspapers of the last few days. And let me start with inflation. Inflation prints that have come out for the month of November have been extremely high. Consumer price inflation went up by 11.2% and wholesale price inflation went up by a fairly hefty 7.5%. Now, what does this mean? Inflation is measured by two different indices. The consumer price index, which is a basket of stuff that you and I consume. It includes services like rent, healthcare, and so on. And then you have the wholesale price index. Think of it as prices of food in the mandis, prices of cars coming out of factories, etc. The difference, of course, is that the wholesale price index is confined entirely to the prices of goods, whereas the CPI or the consumer price index includes both goods and services. Should you be really alarmed about an 11.2% increase in November in the consumer price index? Well, yes, certainly, but there is a bit of caveat and relief that you need to bear in mind. One of the reasons why inflation went up so sharply was the fact that vegetable prices, and you are aware of the way onion prices and tomato prices went up during that period, that shot up by a whopping 65% for the month of November. Now, when I say the month of November, what does it mean? How is the price increase calculated? It's not the price increase in November over October. The way inflation is calculated for both these indices is the price in November 2013 relative to or with the base of the 2012 November price. So year on year or compared to last year, prices were up by 11.2%. But let me get back to what I was saying earlier. That with vegetable prices contributing so much, there is every possibility that as vegetable prices come down, and we've seen some evidence of that in December, inflation will moderate. Now, what are the problems with inflation? Typically, inflation is associated with high interest rates. Think of yourself as a depositor, right? You are putting money in a bank and you want the return on your money to at least beat the rate of price increase. So higher inflation, higher the rate of interest, and as a borrower, that hurts you. You can also think of inflation as a tax on your income, right? It's the most regressive tax possible because the poor end up paying the same amount proportionally as the rich. And finally, inflation leads to a lot of uncertainty about the future. Companies, for instance, are concerned about what the price of their inputs is going to be. So in a nutshell, inflation is a bad thing. It leads to a lot of uncertainty, a lot of volatility in the economy. It eats into your income and has to be brought down. So how can it be brought down? And this is the final thing that I'm going to say. There are two ways in which I think one can interpret the drivers of inflation as they exist in India today. A very common definition that economists use is inflation is a situation where there is too much money chasing too few goods. So one way to curb inflation is to bring the amount of money in the economy down, and raising interest rates, right, which the central bank or the RBI does, is one way of curbing the flow of money. The second thing, of course, and I'm sure you're aware of this, is that we have a lot of supply bottlenecks, and increasingly these bottlenecks are beginning to bite for things like vegetables, milk, poultry and so on, because we don't have a good supply chain. For instance, we don't have enough cold storages in the country. So the inflation problem has to be tackled partially through the monetary channel, as I mentioned, and also by building capacity in bringing food from the farm gate to your food plate. And that requires large investments in the supply chain.